Today we're talking about tax planning, and more specifically, tax planning versus tax preparation. And now is a great time of the year. The beginning of the year is a great time to have this conversation because we have a full year left of tax planning. Now we're also in tax preparation season. So I want to talk about the difference between these two because we see small business owners get these two confused, or they do one but not the other. And it's important that this is a combined effort between these two options, tax preparation and tax planning. So let's dig into it. What is tax preparation? What is tax planning? And we'll start with tax preparation. Tax preparation is simply taking information, prior year data, and sending it up to the governmental agencies, whether that's the IRS, whether that's your state agency. So it's taking what happened last year, putting it on a tax return, and then sending it to the government to report to the government, here's the activity that I had. Here's the income that I had. Here's the expenses I had. Here's what happened in my business. And now you, the government, have that information, and then you can tax us on that, and they have that information for it. So that's what tax preparation is. Tax preparation has nothing to do with saving taxes. Tax preparation is simply taking information and sending it to the government agencies. Now, tax preparation is required by law. So this is super important. Tax preparation is not something that should be overlooked, but it is something that is not going to save you taxes. And so when you think about taxes, if the only thing that you think about is tax preparation, that's a problem because more likely than not, you're paying too much in tax. So now let's look at tax planning. Tax planning is something that happens throughout the year. So tax planning, January to December is when we do tax planning. And it's a constant thing. We might do some tax planning. We might learn about a strategy and implement it in February. Then we might look in March and we might implement another one. And then mid-year, we might find about another strategy and implement. And then especially at year end, we're going to be implementing different strategies. So tax planning is something that happens throughout the year. And it's this idea of understanding strategies, tax strategies that can be implemented to help us save on taxes and making sure that we implement those tax strategies. So tax planning is something that happens throughout the year. Tax preparation is something that happens after the year is over. So again, tax planning, January through December, and then tax preparation for that year is done after the year is over. And so we talk about the importance of tax planning and tax preparation. We're never going to discredit tax preparation because, again, that's required by law. Everybody must prepare and file a tax return. But where most people miss out is this idea of tax planning. And that's what we want to talk about, this idea of tax planning. Now, tax planning is something that we talk about. Our podcast, our YouTube channel, our blog is specifically focused on tax planning. That's what we're here for. That is my mission, is to help small business owners understand the strategies that are available to them that they can implement in their business, regardless of your business size. Whether you're just starting off making a couple $1,000s here, there's tax planning available to you. Whether you're making multi-millions, there's tax planning available to you as well. And so that's something that we want to help people understand. Now, tax planning is something that happens throughout the year, as we've mentioned. And tax planning is something that constantly is changing. Tax planning isn't just something that we do it once in June and then we're just done and never touch tax planning again. No, tax planning is something that's going to be constantly evolving, especially from year to year as well. So for this tax year, you might implement a strategy, and that strategy, you just implement it, you're done with that strategy. Then all of a sudden something else happens. You had a change in ownership. You had a change in the employee type. You had employees that now want health insurance. You wanted to offer this. You need a new piece of equipment, or now we're doing more tax planning. Even though we implemented one strategy, now we're doing more tax planning on more strategies. And so that's the key part, is understand that. So again, tax preparation is after the fact. It's just taking information, sending it up to the government agencies. Tax planning is done throughout the year. And that's the important part of that. Now we're here in January. We have plenty of time to do tax planning. We have plenty of time to understand, learn tax strategies, implement tax strategies, and ensure that this is the year that we pay the least amount of taxes as legally possible. So that's why we want to do this early in the year. We want to help make you aware of what are some things we can be thinking about, because right now you might be thinking tax preparation. We're coming into that season where we're preparing tax returns for last year, and that's fine. But at the same time, you might be getting hit with a massive tax bill. And that tax bill, you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to lower my taxes. That's the tax planning piece. You're not going to lower your taxes in tax preparation. So if you're that person that got hit with a big tax bill, or is going to get hit with a big tax bill from prior year because you didn't do tax planning, make it at a point that this year you're going to do tax planning. So let's talk about some of the significance of tax planning. Number one, it reduces your tax liability. Instead of paying $100,000 in taxes, we're paying $50,000 in taxes, or whatever the example is. That's the ultimate goal with tax planning, is how can we pay the least amount in taxes as legally possible? And the other thing that I want to talk about when we talk about this idea of tax planning is a lot of people say, well, Mike, I don't want to raise red flags. I don't want to cause the IRS or state agencies to come after me. And the biggest thing that I want to talk about, and this is an important concept to understand, is that tax planning is just the idea of taking the laws that were written and using them to our advantage. The government agencies give us incentives. As a business owner, the government is incentivizing us because we're business owners. And that incentivization is saying, hey, here's a tax strategy you can use to lower your tax bill. Here's something you can do. That's the benefit of being a business owner, because what are you as a business owner doing that the government likes? You're creating jobs. You're creating products that people can buy. You're helping the economy. The government loves business, and they're incentivizing business owners to become business owners. They're incentivizing people to become business owners because of the tax advantages that come along with it. So I don't want people to think that by saving taxes, we're cheating the government. That is absolutely not the case. And if that is the case, that is something you're doing, then you're doing stuff illegal. You're doing illegal things. You're not utilizing the strategies that are available. We want to look at, if you are not doing tax planning, you're saying, government, I know you're giving me this gift. You're giving me this incentive, but I don't want it. And if that's you, if you're saying, hey, here's a gift, but I don't want it, I think we need to change that aspect. And so that's the key thing. Also with tax planning, the important thing is, first off, understanding the law. That's what our goal here is on the podcast, on our TV channel, on our blog. Our goal is to help you understand the law so that you can implement it the right way. But it's understanding the law and then implementing the strategy by dotting our I's, crossing our T's, making sure we're doing it correctly. Because something might be legal, but during the implementation process, we can make it illegal. Let's look at a home office. Home office is a strategy that every business owner should be taking advantage of. Completely legal, part of the tax code, and the government encourages it. But people can abuse it. People can say, well, 95% of my home is my home office. That's probably not true. That's probably not makes sense. But if you could do that, you could do that on your tax return. It's likely illegal and wrong, but you have a legal strategy that you're just not implementing correctly. So when we talk about this idea of tax planning, tax strategy, it's one, is the strategy legal? Of course, everything we talk about, that's our first goal. And then two, how do we dot our I's, cross our T's, and make sure we're doing that strategy correctly to hold up if the IRS or state agencies came knocking. So let's go back to significance of tax planning, reducing tax liability. The other one is obviously with reduced tax liability, it has an increase in cash flow. You have more cash. Instead of sending $100,000 to the government, you're only sending $50,000 to the government, just as an example. And that means you have $50,000 extra in your pocket. That's increased cash flow. What are you going to do with that? Could we save it? Could we invest in our business? Could we make strategic investments in other areas that's going to grow our business, grow our wealth, while also lowering taxes? Could we invest in real estate? Could we invest in some sort of other tax advantage strategy? So that's the benefits of tax planning. Of course, you're reducing tax liability, which in turn is giving us more cash flow, which we can then decide what we want to do with. Do we want to invest in our business? Do we want to grow our business? Do we want to get into real estate? And guess what? With all of those things, the government incentivizes us again. When we reinvest in our business, when we buy equipment, there's an incentive from the government for that. When we get into real estate, the government loves people getting into real estate. There's incentives for that. And so it's just the understanding of you as a business owner. We need to understand what's available to us. And that's our goal. That's my goal, is to bring awareness of those strategies available to you. But then your goal, your job as a business owner, is to learn those strategies and implement those strategies and take advantage of the incentive that the federal government, the state governments are giving you. So let's again look at this tax planning versus tax prep. You cannot have one or the other. It should be a tax planning and tax prep. Tax prep's just as important as tax planning. Tax planning just provides us with those tax savings. There are two things that have the word tax in them, but they do two different things. Tax planning reduces taxes. Tax preparation reports our information to the government and is required by law. So we can't have tax planning only, and we can't have tax preparation only. We need to have tax planning and tax preparation. Again, tax preparation is just taking the information the prior year, sending it to the government agencies required by law, send it to them, giving those information so they have that information. That's all it is. It's a reporting mechanism. Tax planning is what we do before we even think about tax preparation. Tax planning is done throughout the year, constantly revisiting, constantly updating, and that's where we reduce our taxes, implement strategies to pay the least amount of taxes as legally possible. So your next question is, how do you do tax planning? What does tax planning even mean? Like, how do I get started with this idea of tax planning? I understand, yes, I love all the benefits of tax planning, but how do I do it? And the first thing is you need to start learning. You need to put some time and effort in to learn these tax strategies and what's available to you. And again, that's my mission. My mission is to help business owners be aware of the tax strategies that are out there for them. So we have plenty of free resources. And I would say check out our podcast, Small Business Tax Savings Podcast. Check out our blog. Go to taxsavingspodcast.com. We have a blog that goes along with most episodes that has, if you prefer to read instead of listen, there's plenty of options there. We have our Tax Savings TV, our YouTube channel. You can go to taxsavingstv.com and find all these strategies, all these different ideas where we do a video of it. So whether you prefer to listen, read, or watch, we have a solution for you. And that's the first step, is learning about the tax strategies, understanding the tax strategies that are available to you. The second step, which is just as important, is that implementation piece. We can learn all we want, but learning doesn't save us on taxes. Taking what we've learned and implementing it is what saves us on taxes. And so I always say, whenever I'm talking to a new business owner, someone that's just listened to our podcast, just subscribing to our YouTube channel, I say, write down on a piece of paper, what are you learning? Open up a note on your phone. And when you hear a strategy, we're talking about hiring your kids. We're talking about home office. We're talking about maximizing deductions. Write that strategy on a note, on a piece of paper, and then go to your calendar and make a note that every first Wednesday of every month or whatever day works for you, you're going to revisit that note and spend 2 hours that day implementing a tax strategy. If you go first Wednesday of the month, you open up your notes on your phone, you say, hire kids, Augusta rule, maximizing deductions, taking advantage of travel, and doing an S corporation. Well, take some time to then implement that because you've learned it, the tax strategy. Now it's time to put it into practice. Let's take what we've learned and put it into practice. And that's just important. Again, learning is great, but learning doesn't provide tax savings. That taking what we've learned and implementing is what provides us those tax savings. So we have our podcast, Small Business Tax Savings Podcast, our blog, and TV. You can find everything at taxsavingspodcast.com, or you can find our YouTube channel at taxsavingstv.com. The next resource we have is TaxElm. And TaxElm is a new software that we launched last year. TaxElm is really what we say is your ultimate resource for eliminating taxes and growing your wealth. As part of TaxElm, it's a subscription service. You get to create a custom tax plan. That tax plan is going to tell you what strategies you need to be learning about. We then have a library of content, of downloads, of guides, of workbooks on all of these tax strategies along with videos. So you can create your tax plan, then go into our library of tax strategies, learn about the strategies along with templates that we have in there, along with guides, workbooks that we have within there, and then implement those tax strategies. Also included with our subscription is unlimited messaging with tax experts. Our team is here for you. Think of this as like an accountant in your back pocket. As you're implementing that strategy, a question might pop up. You have a team, you can message our team an unlimited amount of times to ask those questions. You might have a situation where you're like, can I deduct this in my business? Or how can I deduct this in my business? You have access to our team for that. So you have unlimited messaging access to our team of tax experts to ask those tax planning questions as they come up. Also included with your annual membership is an annual consultation with us. You get to go one-on-one live video consulting with a member from our tax experts to talk about your specific strategy. So, and we have a lot of other things, monthly webinars, partner discounts, various different things. And so ultimately TaxElm is if you're saying, hey, I just need a little bit of help. I need to go a little bit further. We have that team where we can be that expert. We can go along with you in this entire tax elimination, tax planning, reducing your tax bill journey. And so ultimately, TaxElm was really designed as a way to help you pay less taxes each and every year while growing your business and expanding your wealth. So this is an important topic, something I wanted to talk about. And I'm sure a lot of people are listening to our podcast, watching our YouTube channel. They know about tax plan and the importance of it, but I want to put some pressure on this now at the beginning of the year to shoot that as just another reminder. What is tax preparation? Tax preparation is taking information from the prior year, putting it in a tax return, and sending it up to the governmental agencies. It's just a reporting mechanism. tax planning is implementing learning strategies throughout the year, January through December. Once 12/31 hits, majority of tax strategies go out the door. So tax planning is learning strategies between January and December, learning those strategies, implementing those strategies, making changes, doing things within their business to reduce their tax liability to the least amount as legally possible. Again, remember, the government gives business owners an incentive. These tax strategies, these ways to save on taxes, is the government's way of incentivizing you as a business owner to reduce your tax bill. Now, the government's not going out and just advertising and exploiting all these tax strategies, but they're in the tax code. And they're in the tax code for a reason, for you as a business owner to take advantage. It's just your responsibility to understand what is the tax strategy, does it relate to me and my business, and then how do I implement it? And that's what we're here for with our podcast, with our YouTube channel. Again, tax prep and tax planning go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. You shouldn't have one without the other. You can't do tax planning and then just never do tax prep. That's illegal. You shouldn't do tax prep and not do tax planning because you're paying way too much in taxes than legally possible. So tax prep is important, required by law. Tax planning is important. That's what reduces your taxes. They both have the word tax in them, but they do different things. One just reports things to the governmental agencies, and one reduces your tax bill. And we talk about how do you do tax planning? What are the options out there? First, you need to learn the tax strategies. That's what we talk about on our podcast, our blog, our YouTube channel. Dive into those channels, dive into those things, because every week we're bringing a new episode, a new tax strategy, something new that you can do in your business to reduce your tax bill. But the second piece of that is once we've learned, we need to implement. And implementing is just as important, because if we learn something, that doesn't reduce our taxes until we implement it. So make a note, make it a priority for you this year to take what you're learning on our podcast, what we're teaching you, and actually implementing it in your business so you can see the results that make this the year that you pay the least amount in taxes as legally possible. And then we also have TaxElm, which is our software platform that helps you eliminate taxes and grow your wealth, where we have downloads, guides, workbooks, unlimited access to our team, an annual consultation with you. We take this whole tax planning thing to another level. And you can check that out at taxelm.com. That's TaxElm.com. So hopefully this was helpful. Again, take action. We're talking about this, taking action. Make this a year. Make sure you put a note in your calendar every time you want to listen to a new podcast episode. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll get a notice every time we put a new video up. And take action. Make this the year that you pay the least amount in taxes as legally possible.
This has been another episode of the Small Business Tax Savings Podcast. If you enjoy our weekly episodes, please leave a review and share with other business owners. You can find previous episodes and more information at www.taxsavingspodcast.com. Thanks for listening and have a great day.